Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 413. We're going to be talking about 2023 NFL draft props, some bets that we like already, and I'm sure we'll like some as the draft approaches. It's hard to believe it's 9 days away, but yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. I can't believe the draft's in 9 days either. I feel like we've said that every week, but we're really coming down to it, and we're starting to look at the draft props. They're starting to look pretty appetizing at this point as we try to kind of suss everything out.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to be looking at DraftKings, their draft props. I couldn't find them on FanDuel. Bookmaker doesn't have that many draft props, so I think DraftKings has the best draft props from what I've seen. You might be able to get better numbers elsewhere, so you can definitely shop around. I highly recommend that. So, yeah, we're going to get into all that. Before we do, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. As you can see, I am wearing my free Gruden t-shirt that Charlie was wearing for our mock draft a few weeks ago. It's actually the same t-shirt. Charlie mailed it to me, so I'm wearing it now. So yeah, you can get that at our merch store. Also, we're sponsored by Stochastic, best DFS website out there. I've been having so much success cashing baseball lineups, and I can't even name like 10 guys off the top of my head. Like if I see their names, I'll be like, okay, I know who they are. But like off the top of my head, I don't think I can name 10 baseball players. And yet I've like cashed like 9 out of the past 10 days using just Stochastic. So I highly recommend them. Check them out. Use promo code Walter Football. It's one word, Walter Football, for 25% off. I've been using them for 4 years. So like I said, I highly recommend them. So, all right, let's get into this. I don't know how you wanted to go with this. Like they have pick number, draft position totals, top 10 draft matchups, and then they have some draft specials, which is like first quarterback selected, draft team specials. I don't know if you want to go like category by category, but like for example, for this number one draft pick, nothing really intrigues me. Bryce Young's up to minus 1,400. Sounds like he's going to be the first overall pick because he canceled all of his future meetings. So I think it's going to be Young over Stroud, despite the coaches liking Stroud more. It's very bizarre what's happening in Carolina. But do any of these numbers 1 through 6 picks intrigue you?
Yeah, all the even numbered picks, I have some bets that I like on. For the number 2 pick, CJ Stroud, I think was 3-1 when I looked earlier, at plus 300 odds. I know that there's been chatter about the Texans not taking a quarterback there or trading down and maybe targeting a quarterback at 12, like Will Levis, or maybe they really like Will Levis, who has shorter odds than Stroud. But I still am not fully buying into that. I think that could really be a smoke screen just to say, hey, CJ Stroud, we really like him, but let's see if we can move down. And Will Levis will probably be there if they move down. And maybe they could pick up a bounty of assets. Maybe they could position themselves to land a couple of key players to upgrade that offense. So I'm a fan of going with him at the 3-1 odds bet there. Number 4, Anthony Richardson at plus 450. I'm pretty sure the Colts, if Anthony Richardson is on the board, I'd be surprised if they pass on him unless they were to trade up to get CJ Stroud or, if Bryce Young somehow fell outside of the first pick, maybe they would do that. But I don't think Young's falling, first of all. And I don't know that the Colts are going to be able to trade up for Stroud because I think the Texans might be smoke screening them. So I like the idea of them drafting Richardson. So getting him at plus 450 is pretty good. And then number 6 pick, this one's probably my favorite of the bunch, but Bijan Robinson is plus 2,200 to be the number 6 pick to the Lions. I think that they're probably going to be choosing between 2 players at that spot. It's going to be Devon Witherspoon, the cornerback from Illinois, or Bijan Robinson, because those are their 2 kind of bigger needs now. They traded Jeff Okudah, so they need a youth at cornerbacks. They signed 2 guys to 1-year deals to play. Gardner Johnson's a safety, but he'll play some slot, and Emmanuel Mosley will play outside with Cam Sutton. But I think they want a long-term option there, so Witherspoon could be the guy. But if not him, I think they could go Robinson, and he's just so low at 22-1 that taking a flyer on that is well worth it. Because if you were to put just $5 or $10 on that, you're talking about $110, $220 payout. And I don't know that it's a binary choice between those guys, but I don't think they're taking a quarterback. Jalen Carter doesn't strike me as a guy they would take there. I just think that I think that Bijan's such a great value pick there. So those are the 3 I like from this category.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have some information on this as the draft approaches. So, a lot of these props I'm going to have on the site as official picks. Nothing's official yet, even though we're just kind of like spitballing what we like here. With number two overall, I'm going to go the other way. I think that they're not going to take CJ Stroud. I don't think it's a smokescreen, even though I think the Texans are extremely stupid for passing on CJ Stroud, but I think it's going to happen. I can never pronounce this guy's name right. Lance Zerline from NFL.com. I think he has good sources with the Texans. He nailed both the Texans picks last year. Stingley, which is, a lot of people had, but then a lot of people didn't have Kenyon Green. So he nailed both of them. He's pretty adamant in saying the Texans are not taking a quarterback at 2. I feel like they're going to take either Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson. So I would be willing to bet both of them here, and they're both plus money. They're plus 150, plus 250. So I think if it's not Stroud, I think you're almost guaranteed to win this going that way. So that's something I would consider. And like this might change in the near future once maybe if it becomes clear that they're not taking Stroud. Maybe these odds go to minus. So that's something I would do soon. Number 4 overall, I think this might be Stroud. If the Texans pass on Stroud, suddenly Stroud is going to go either 3 or 4. If the team moves up to 3, we'll see, or number 4. So there's some risk to this not being Stroud because the team can move up to 3. Maybe it's even the Colts. So this is not something I would bet, but if I had to, I think it'd be Stroud. But yeah, we're definitely in lockstep in number 6. I think Bijan Robinson at 22-1 is amazing odds. The Lions love him. They would be willing to draft them at number 6. I think that Will Anderson would be the only player they would draft above him for sure. And there's an outside chance that he gets there. I don't think he will, but it is definitely possible. So I would consider that too. But Devon Witherspoon would be the other pick as well. It's not going to be Christian Gonzalez. It's not going to be Tyree Wilson. I can tell you that. I don't think it's going to be Jalen Carter. So right now it's either Witherspoon, Anderson, or Robinson. And Robinson at 22-1 looks amazing at number 6.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good bet, though. Someone's saying Bijan is 60-1 on FanDuel in the comments to go 6th. If that's true, I would be all over that.
Yeah, me too. I would love to know where the draft props are in FanDuel because I looked and I couldn't find them. But yeah, that's why I said like you have to shop around and find the best odds. So I'll definitely be looking for the best odds, and 60-1 is amazing.
Yeah, and if it is on FanDuel at that price, I can sign up and get free bets since I haven't signed up for them yet in Massachusetts. So nice. I may be putting on a big referral bet there on Bijan if I'm allowed to do that. So fingers crossed that will remain at that number. But yeah, I think you're right about Will Anderson in that case. But I have a tough time believing that if the Texans pass on CJ Stroud, they wouldn't go Will Anderson. I know Tyree Wilson has been gaining buzz lately. I know Charlie has Tyree Wilson going to the Cardinals ahead of Will Anderson in his mock draft. So maybe it's possible, but man, if the Texans pass on CJ Stroud and Will Anderson for Tyree Wilson, I'm going to be real confused by that. I know Wilson has upside, but those two, like Stroud and Anderson, look to be like very safe prospects at positions of need for the Texans. And Wilson has a higher ceiling maybe than Anderson, but he's not as safe, and he's coming in with a foot injury. So I'm very interested to see how that number 2 pick plays out either way. But man, maybe you're right. Maybe it is a smokescreen. Zerline does have good sources there.
I don't know. When you have Davis Mills, the quarterback, you can easily pass on these franchise quarterbacks. I don't understand what the Texans are doing. But as I said to a friend this morning who texted me, he's like, this is BS, right? The Texans aren't going to pass on quarterback. I'm like, dude, this is the Texans. They've done so many dumb things. Like this wouldn't even be number 1 on their list. So, if there is a team to make a dumb decision, it is definitely Houston. So let's move on to draft position. So here we have like over unders for each player. You have Anthony Richardson, Broderick Jones. There are a bunch of players here. Did anything stand out to you in this list?
Yeah, one of the ones that stood out to me here was Will Levis's draft position. He's over under 6.5 plus 185. I have a tough time seeing Will Levis going in the top 6 picks because Look, if CJ Stroud doesn't go to the Texans, then I think it's pretty much a lock that Will Levis is not going in the top 6 unless Seattle is in love with him. Because by all accounts, the Colts, I think, like Richardson better than him. And if Stroud's on the board, they probably would go with Stroud. Um, and I just don't see a team trading up for Will Levis in that range of picks. So I think he's more likely to fall maybe to that Texans pick at 12. Maybe they love Will Levis and they believe he'll be on the board at 12. That would be the only reason I can think of that they would not take a quarterback at 2, which even still would not be a smart decision because then you run the risk of another team jumping ahead of you in the draft order or having to trade up. But anyway, either way, I think you're getting pretty good value on Will Levis there. So I would definitely take a shot on that one. And then Anthony Richardson, I liked at under 4.5 for draft position. But that was when I thought CJ Stroud might be the Texans pick. So, I still don't mind that under because I could very much see the Cardinals auctioning off the pick to the highest bidder for Stroud. And if that's the Titans that win that, I think it's going to be hard for the Colts to pass on Richardson in that standpoint. So I like that a little bit too, but I'm not as high on it without knowing that Stroud's going to be off the board.
Yeah, I'm so confused as to why the Will Levis under 6.5 is juiced to minus 250. It seems insane to me. I don't get like which team would trade up for him. And there are a bunch of teams that need quarterbacks that aren't going to take him. The Colts are not going to take him. So like I feel like the positions are pretty limited, 1 through 6. It's not going to be 1. I don't think I'd be shocked if it's 2. I mean, Lance Erling said no to number 2. Unless the team moves to 3 or 5 or 6, I guess. But like, yeah, I don't see that happening. I feel like there's a good chance Will Levis really falls in this draft more than anything. So I definitely would go over plus 185. That's my favorite pick here as well. Something else I like a lot is Paris Johnson under 10.5 plus 105. I don't understand why the under is an underdog here because the Raiders love Paris Johnson. The Bears could really use him. Plus, he's a former teammate of Justin Fields. It's a perfect fit for the Bears too. The Eagles could possibly take him. I don't think they would, but it's definitely a home for him. Atlanta, number 8, is a possibility as well. So you have all these spots available for Paris Johnson, who is arguably the top tackle in this draft. I don't think he's going to go 11 or later. So that really looks good to me. And another one that I don't love nearly as much because the juice is pretty high. Zay Flowers under 22.5 is minus 175. He's got a lot of interest from the Ravens, but there are so many teams that need receivers starting at number 12. I feel like he could definitely go off the board. Like think about all the teams that need receivers. You have 12 Texans, 13 Jets, 14 Patriots, 15 Packers. I don't think the Redskins or Steelers would take him, and the Lions, no. But then in Tampa, no. But then you have 20 Seattle, definitely could take a third receiver, 21 Chargers, and then 22 Ravens. Plus, you have teams that are desperate for receivers after that who might trade up, like the Vikings at 23, Giants at 25. Bills at 27, Chiefs at 31, Bengals if they trade T. Higgins, even those teams could all move up for a receiver. So, we saw the receivers go earlier than expected last year. I feel like we might see the same thing. So I would like that a lot, but the juice is kind of high.
Yeah, the juice is definitely high there. I think with good reason. You outlined why. I think the smoke of him to the Ravens is pretty legit. So the idea of them selecting him or a team trading in front of them to get him intrigues me. I also have a bet out on Flowers to be the top receiver taken in this draft. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I know he's on the smaller side, but he catches a lot bigger than his frame. He's pretty fast. He's shifty. He's a good route runner. And I know Jackson Smith-Njigba and Jordan Addison are kind of the guys who've been getting a lot of the buzz, and Quentin Johnston, but I think he's going later than people would think. It wouldn't surprise me if Flowers went in the top 15, like one pick ahead of Smith-Njigba or something like that. I think this receiver class among the top 4 is pretty wide open as to who will be off the board first.
Yeah, totally agree. I like that prop that Flowers could go first. He's definitely in the running for that. What about position totals? We have like number of positions drafted in the first round. Honestly, for me, I only saw one thing that really stood out here. Maybe even a second. There's a third as well, but the juice is kind of insane. So I don't know. What do you? Actually, there are two I really like. Like, what do you think about these props?
So there was one that really stood out to me. It was the running backs over 1.5, I
Yeah.
think is plus 350. And that seems insane to me. And I think this is people devaluing the running back position a little bit too much or anticipating that Bijan Robinson is going to fall way further than he will. Frankly, there are too many people out there that don't think Bijan Robinson is going to be a top 10 pick. Maybe he won't go in the top 10. Maybe he'll slip a little bit below that, but I find it hard to believe that he's going outside of the top 15. And look, Jahmyr Gibbs is another really dynamic, talented back, compares favorably to Alvin Kamara when he was at his best, and was arguably the best player on the Alabama offense, not named Bryce Young. In fact, he certainly was the best player on the Alabama offense, not named Bryce Young. So I think there's a chance that he could go top 25. And at the very least, there are a few teams picking at the end of the first round, like the Saints and the Eagles, who could use another running back. Even the Bengals, they have Joe Mixon, but they lost Samaje Perine this offseason. Maybe if the board doesn't fall the way they like it, maybe they look and say, hey, the best player on our board is Jahmyr Gibbs. So they get plus 350. This is a pretty good value. Maybe Gibbs will fall in the second round, but I'm pretty sure he'll go in the first. So of these, that's the one that stands out to me. I'm sure you have that on your card too, but I'm interested to hear what the other one you really like is.
Yeah, total running backs over three and over 1.5. It's plus 330 now, but still, I like that a lot. Bijan Robinson is going to go earlier than people expect, and I think Jahmyr Gibbs it will as well. Um, I don't think he's going to get past the Bills at 27 if he's available, but he may not be. I could see him going number 19 to Tampa Bay. That's actually where we had him in our 3-man mock that we did a few weeks ago. And by the way, we're going to be doing another 3-man mock next week. I think that's like seems like a great bet. Like if the juice were like minus 110, I would still have interest in the over. Like the fact that it's plus 330 is insane to me. I think it's definitely going to happen. Yeah, obviously you never say never, crazy things could happen. Maybe Gibbs or Robinson, something happens with them like Bongate or something with Tunsil. But as it stands now, I think it's definitely going to happen. Something that stands out to me as well is quarterbacks drafted in the first round under 4.5. So I feel like it's like this is the opposite of the running back phenomenon that you said. People expect running backs to go later because the position is devalued. I think people expect quarterbacks to go much earlier than they will. And this happened last year. Remember, like everyone thought Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett were locks for the first round. And Malik Willis fell to the third round. Kenny Pickett dropped to 19 to the Steelers. If the Steelers didn't take him, I don't think Kenny Pickett was going in the first round. So that easily could have been 0. So I'm wondering, like, obviously there are going to be 3 quarterbacks taken in the first round. You have Young, Stroud, and Richardson. I don't think it's a lock that Will Levis is going to go in the first round. Like I said before, there's so many teams that just don't like him. He could drop. I think ultimately he will. I feel like he'll probably go in the teens somewhere, maybe the 20s. But I think he's going to fall. And then it's up to Hendon Hooker to get there. And he's a 26-year-old coming off a torn ACL. Like I know he was amazing at Tennessee last year, but he does rely on his legs. And I mean, he's a great pet thrower too, but he relies on his legs. And he's coming off a torn ACL. I don't think he's going to be 100% in his rookie year. So if he were like 21 and in this situation, I think okay, yeah, he's still going to go in the first round. But he's 26. Like teams don't like these older prospects for the most part. So I think he might be devalued from that perspective. So I think that there's a better chance he goes in the second round. So I think at least one of Levis or Hooker will go in the second round. The prop I mentioned about the juice being kind of high is total receivers drafted in the first round over 3.5 minus 190. So it's like never a good feeling to pay minus 190 juice, but I would be shocked if the sophomore receivers didn't go in the first round. You mentioned them there: Jackson Smith and Jigba, Quentin Johnson, Zay Flowers, and Jordan Addison. I feel like they're all almost locks for the first round. So I like that a lot, but the juice is pretty tough.
Yeah, I might avoid that just because of the juice, but I agree with you. They're probably all coming off the board because there's so many teams that need a receiver and don't have a ton of other needs and can afford to take a swing on one of those guys. When it comes to quarterbacks, I agree with you there. I think that that's a great bet, the under, because basically you're relying on Hendon Hooker either way going in the first round. And I think a lot of people get caught up in looking at the numbers. And yeah, he performed great when he was on the field last year, but that torn ACL was brutal for him. If he was an older quarterback prospect coming in with no injury concern, I think there's a chance he goes late first round so the team can get that fifth year option with him and say, hey, like we're going to have this guy under contract till he's 30, cost controlled, it'll be fine. But where he's coming off that injury, I think teams are going to be wary of drafting him too early. I think he still probably will be a top 50 pick. But if Will Levis slides further than people think, say he even gets past the Texans at 12, or the Texans, maybe trade down or something, and Levis continues to slide, that's just going to close the door a little bit on Hooker coming into that first round. So I like that one for sure, too. I actually have mentioning in terms of Will Levis falling, I think if he slips, this could be a situation where if the Vikings are like, oh, we're not going to get one of the top receivers, maybe they could take Will Levis and they're 20-1 to land him. So I kind of like the idea of sprinkling a little bit on them and just saying, hey, I'm going to take a flyer on he's going to have maybe a Drew Lock style fall where he won't fall out in the first round like Lock did, but he'll be this kind of highly touted quarterback with all this potential, all the tools for the next level. But he slips down the board because teams aren't in love with him. But Minnesota, looking for a successor to Cousins, takes that Green Bay Aaron Rodgers type deal and says, hey, this guy fell in our laps. We could develop him behind Cousins for a year, then turn the job to him. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking at in terms of like player team matches. I think Levis at 20-1 to the Vikings might be a fun one.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. It reminds me of Jordan Love getting to the Packers a few years ago. And, I feel like Viking fans maybe wouldn't like that too much because, they made the playoffs last year. They're not too far away from making a deep run into the playoffs. Like they have to add some cornerbacks. They have to get a second receiver. But outside of that, like they have a really good roster. So if I were a Viking fan, I would be disappointed if they drafted Will Levis. But that has something to do with Will Levis more than the quarterback position. Like if this were CJ Stroud in a free fall randomly, I would love Stroud. This is more Levis than anything. We have a question from Joe. Would you pay minus 180 for Bijan in the top 15? I mean, I'd shop around for better odds, I think, but I think that'll win. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if that doesn't win. I think Bijan's floor is 18 to the Lions. And I highly doubt that he gets there because that would require him to get through the Patriots. We know how Bill Belichick thinks. He thinks differently. I know they have Ramondre Stevenson, but if he sees Bijan Robinson there and is like, I can have these two running backs in my backfield and Bijan have 5 years of control, he might take a shot on them. So I think like if you do top 15, you're almost certainly getting it. So I'd shop around too. I'd maybe even just take the top 10 with him or bet top 10 and top 15. But I'd be really surprised if top 15 doesn't hit.
Speaking of the top X picks, they have odds for top 10. And I feel like mostly mostly reasonable prices except for like Jalen Carter minus 2,500, Tyree Wilson minus 1,000, Anthony Richardson minus 800, and then Will Levis minus 650. Most of them are like pretty reasonable otherwise. So did you see anything you like in this group?
I think I had Bijan listed as top 10 pick at plus 125 because I think the Lions obviously could take him. I like that. But if that doesn't happen, the Eagles could scoop up Robinson. I know they haven't invested a ton in the running back position before, but Robinson is a game changing player. Pairing him with Jalen Hurts would make life hellish for opposing defenses. And the Eagles have 2 first round picks. So if they're like, oh, we want another pass rusher, it's a deep edge class, so they should be able to get one at 30. Whereas the running backs, if Jahmyr Gibbs goes to the Bills at 27, like you mentioned, is possible, they're the top 2 guys would be gone at that point, and then you'd have to wait to add. And I know you can find quality running backs pretty much at any point in the draft. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco was a huge part of the Chiefs' offense last year. He's a 7th round pick, but if they're looking for a dynamic game changer to pair with Hurts and just make sure, hey, we're going to keep this number 1 rushing offense, I think they could take Bijan Robinson at 10. So I think there are enough landing spots for him that I'm comfortable paying the plus 125 for him. Aside from that, I didn't see a whole ton that I liked. I think Paris Johnson, I think that's his plus 105. I like that as well because you mentioned earlier there are a ton of landing spots for him at that point. Uh, I would maybe take a couple offensive tackles too. I know Darnell Wright's name has been hot of late. So at plus 475, if you bet him and Paris Johnson, I would anticipate one of them goes in the top 10. I would assume Johnson is far more likely, but hey, Wright's not a half bad guess just given the value of offensive tackles and the fact that he continues to steadily climb as the draft draws nearer.
Yeah, I actually like those three names that you mentioned. Bijan Robinson plus 125 for sure. Eagles and Lions are definitely in play for him. Paris Johnson plus 105 seems like an easy win. I don't know if this is a better bet than the other one. I have to look at them, but I think that will win as well. And I could see both Paris Johnson and Darnell Wright going in the top 10. I think Johnson has a good chance to go to the Raiders at number 7, and then Darnell Wright could go number 9 to the Bears, or even number 8 to the Falcons. Charlie Campbell posted a stock report today. Darnell Wright's name was on it, and he mentioned that Darnell Wright's name was definitely moving up draft boards. So I don't think he should be a 5-1 underdog to go in the top 10. I think that probably the correct number for him would be like plus 175 or plus 150, maybe even plus 200. Plus 475 is just absurd. I just think it's great value, so I'm going to be betting that one.
Yeah, that one makes a lot of sense to me. He's a classic sleeper pick that, the whole draft process we've heard, oh, Pete Skoronsky, Paris Johnson Jr., and then Darnell Wright's kind of been hanging around there, and he's been like a mid first round pick for a while, but he's kind of gaining that steam. I think people just view him as a plug and play right tackle, and I think there's a lot of value in that currently at the NFL. So if Johnson were to go 7 to the Raiders or something, I think Wright at 9 to the Bears would be a good one. So if you could find any bets for the number 9 pick, betting a couple offensive tackles might not be a bad move there.
Yeah, and I think he's a better fit for the Bears than Skoronsky is, because the Bears already have, they signed Nate Davis and they had Tevin Jenkins moving to guard. Now, maybe they draft Skoronsky and move Jenkins back to tackle. I don't think that would be a good move because Jenkins has been so much better at guard. So I think it would be a much better move to draft either Wright or Johnson. So I'm glad we're in agreement there. We have some draft matchups, like who will be drafted earlier. You have, for example, Witherspoon versus Christian Gonzalez. Did you have anything that you're leaning toward in this group?
Oh, we already talked about this a bit, but Anthony Richardson is an underdog to Will Levis. Anthony Richardson's plus 170 to go ahead of him. I think I'd be surprised if that doesn't happen at this point. I know teams will sometimes take the higher floor quarterback over the project with a really high ceiling, but will need a lot of time to develop. But I just don't know that teams are that into Will Levis at this point. The odds seem to suggest they are, but I think that's more of relying on the fact that Mel Kiper Jr. is really into Will Levis, and a lot of draft analysts have broken him down and said, yeah, he has all the tools needed to succeed. So I like Anthony Richardson a lot there. There really wasn't a lot of good juice on the other ones that I like. I look at Zay Flowers and I saw his name. I'm like, oh, I'm going to bet him. And then he was posted against Jalen Hyatt. And I'm like, there's no juice there. Some of these matchups were a bit disappointing. I like the Devon Witherspoon over Christian Gonzalez. It seems that Witherspoon's kind of quelled those speed concerns a bit by running post hamstring injury. And I think he clocked the time in the high 4.4s, which is fine for a cornerback. He has a little bit of limitations, but he's just such a gritty and hard playmaker that I think he'll probably go ahead of Gonzalez. I think Witherspoon could be a top 7 pick. If the Lions don't take him, I think he'll really interest the Raiders, who need some help on that defense.
Yeah, I was so surprised by that Zay Flowers' matchup with Hyatt. It's doesn't make sense. Why isn't he match up with Quentin Johnson or Jordan Addison? I know Addison's matched up with the Smith and Jigba, but still, I don't know why Hyatt's there. It's kind of weird. I definitely agree with that. I think Richardson plus 170 looks really good. I do want to confirm with Charlie, later on. Obviously, most of these bets won't be official until I talk to Charlie. But I know that some of them should hit, like Paris, like I think Paris Johnson minus 145 over Skaronski looks pretty good. I like some of the other Paris Johnson bets more though, like rather than paying minus 145 juice. Um, Something that stands out is Jack Campbell plus 120 compared to Drew Sanders, who's minus 150. We've heard from a couple teams who like Campbell and are considering him in the like toward the end of the first round. I haven't heard Drew Sanders' name in the first round, so I think Campbell was like a possibility to go number 25 to the Giants, maybe even as high as 18 to the Lions if the Lions don't get any of the players they want at 18. I think they'd be more than happy with Campbell. Like I said, I haven't heard any first round buzz with Drew Sanders. So I think Campbell is a pretty good pick at plus 120. I also like Dalton Kincaid a little bit, minus 105 over Michael Mayer. Dalton Kincaid's problem was his medical, but he's been medically cleared. So I think that opens up the possibility that he's going to go earlier. I have him in my mock draft today that I just updated. I have him going 15 to the Packers, and I have Mayer going number 26 to Dallas. So it's a pretty big disparity for only minus 105.
Yeah, I like both of those, and both of those kind of fit the narrative of like Mayer and Sanders were at the beginning of the year higher rated in mock drafts than the other two, but they've kind of lost ground on them at this point. So you're getting good value because people are still thinking like, oh, I've seen Michael Mayer in first rounds all year. Dalton Kincaid only entered recently, but really that's a course correction for everything. So I like both of those. I think the Campbell one in particular is good because I've seen Drew Sanders mostly in the second round. Maybe he'll sneak into the first, but I think Campbell will go before him either way.
Yeah, we had a couple questions here. Dane asking, is Overshown a high linebacker on some teams' boards? Linebacker taste can vary. I don't think I can answer that one. I can maybe answer it in the future. I mean, I don't. I want to see where Charlie has him ranked. Overshown. I think he's like kind of high on his prospect rankings. I think he has him in like the second or third round range. Yeah, that's exactly where he has him, in the second or third round range. He has him number 5, and so like Charlie talks to teams, and he gets a lot of insight from them. So if he's ranking Overshown as a round 2 to 3 prospect, that means that some team likes him in that range. At least one team. Now it might only be one, like who knows, but I'm sure there are some more than that. Stackhouse asking thoughts on Brian Branch outside round 1. I feel like he's going to go round 1. So what do you think about these two?
Yeah, I think Overshown, he's one of my favorite sleeper linebackers. Like he's not like a full out sleeper, but he's probably going to go in the mid rounds, maybe at the end of the second round. But he has good size and athleticism. He's a converted safety, so he's going to be good in coverage. And I think teams value that a lot more now at linebacker. It used to be they love the 2 down thumpers, and if you can cover, that's great. But now it's more, hey, we need you to cover, and if you can tackle, that's a plus. But we can teach you if not. So I think Overshown has that going for him as a former safety who can cover and tackle at linebacker. And Brian Branch, I'd be surprised if he slips out around 1. He's probably the best safety in this draft class, and he has the versatility to play in the slot. Teams are always looking for talented defensive backs. I know safety has been devalued a bit as a position, but I think because Branch can play in the slot, teams are going to look at that and say, man, this guy, we can draft him, start him at safety, kick him in the slot as needed, play 3 safety looks. Like a team like the Bills could go after him. They always have good safety plays. They always have multiple safeties on the field. So I just think there are too many possible landing spots for him. And at some point, he's probably the best player available. So I'd keep him in the first round.
Yeah, I'd be surprised as well. Last one from Joe. I think most of the Anthony Richardson Levis stuff is Lance Zerling's doing. I believe there is a report that the Colts like Levis more and view him as more pro ready. I heard the opposite actually. That the Colts like Richardson more, but it didn't seem like they were very bullish on either of them. So I don't know. I don't think they would like to take either, especially Levis. I feel like, as I said, there's so many teams that are down on Levis that I'd be surprised if he doesn't fall at this point. But you never know. I mean, we don't talk to every team. There's a college. There's a college prop section about like conferences. Do you have anything here? I don't.
I definitely don't. I tend not to pay attention to what conference they come from. I'm like, I get so hyper focused on the prospect that I'm not like tracking like SEC or ACC type deal. So
Yeah.
it would take me a lot to go through this and try to figure it out. I know in the past, I feel like Big 12 going the under on that has usually paid off because Big 12 prospects have tougher transition to the NFL usually because they come from, different passing offenses. That's why Quentin Johnston might fall. But I don't really care for these types of bets that much.
The problem for me here is that these conferences change so much that it's hard to keep track of which schools are in each conference. So I just like don't even know anymore. Like they're what, like 14 teams in the Big Ten. So I don't know. I can't. I just not even gonna try. We have a Mr. Irrelevant question. I am not betting this, but you can get minus 115 juice on something completely random. This is like the coin toss for me in the Super Bowl. I assume you're not betting this, right?
No, I wouldn't bet this. The only reason you would bet this if you were like, oh man, Brock Purdy doing so well last year is going to convince the team to take a quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant again. But that is breaking it down too much. Like I probably, if you had to make me pick, I'd probably say, all right, they'll take an offensive player there. But no one knows what the board's going to look like at that point. So there are way better things to bet than Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, I feel like a team thinking that way who has the penultimate pick might take a quarterback, and then the team drafting last is like, well, we wanted that quarterback. I guess we're taking a defensive player. I don't know. I think betting this is stupid, so I would not do it unless you're like, just really wanting to be entertained for the last pick and just have something on it. But paying minus 115 juice, I would not recommend. This should be minus 105, minus 105. Seriously, I don't know why they priced it that high. We have some draft specials here, like first quarterback selected, second quarterback selected, third quarterback selected. Interesting that they didn't do other positions. Oh, they actually, never mind. They have running backs as well. I did not see this. So they have this for every single position. Did you have anything here?
I didn't, but if you go to the wide receiver props, I just want to see what Zay Flowers is to be the first receiver.
Plus 400.
Wow. Okay, so he's now the second favorite to come off the board in that situation. So it's Smith and Jigba, then Flowers. I'd be willing to take a shot on Flowers at 4-1. I got him at 8-1. But I do think there's a chance he's the first off the board. So that's not a bad bet. I think tight end, probably you could do Dalton Kincaid over Michael Mayer. I think that's another good bet. But as far as the other ones are concerned, I'm not super into them. There wasn't a whole lot of differentiation between them.
Yeah, I didn't really see anything either. Like, I talked about Kincaid versus Mayer before. You can get better odds on Kincaid. Was he like plus 105 or was he minus 105? I can't remember. But it's basically the same bet. So you can maybe like Tyree Wilson plus 280 over Will Anderson. The Cardinals like Tyree Wilson better than Will Anderson, but I don't know how the Texans feel. So if the Texans pass on a quarterback, they could easily take Will Anderson and ruin that bet for you. So, but at plus 280, I think it's at least worth a shot. Devon Witherspoon, there are better odds on him versus Christian Gonzalez in the other section. So like this section, I feel like you're just not getting good odds here because they're mixing in some of the other players. Here's another example: Drew Sanders plus 100. Jack Campbell plus 120 versus Drew Sanders plus 100. Like there were better odds in the other section. So I don't know, but there is a draft round for Stetson Bennett. Do you have any lean toward where he could go?
So I just did my quarterback only mock draft, and I put Bennett in the 5th round to the Ravens. The reason I'm doing that is because the Ravens need a long-term quarterback because Tyler Huntley's going to be a free agent, and who knows what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson. They have an opening at third string because Anthony Brown was, he showed some potential last year, but wasn't great. And Stetson Bennett played under Todd Monken at Georgia. So if anyone knows Stetson Bennett and knows what he's capable of, it's Todd Monken. So I think the Ravens will probably take a chance on him at some point if anyone's going to draft him. But I would go somewhere in rounds 5 through 7. I wouldn't be putting him in the first 4 rounds at this point because of the age, size, the minor character concerns. I think it looks like not drafted is the favorite here. I don't think that he'll go undrafted. I think one team's going to take a chance on him at some point. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, I feel like you're just not getting great value with any of these, so I'm not going to bet them. I currently have him in the 3rd round, which is like, if you're overly optimistic on him, like 20-1 might seem pretty good. But even then, like, I feel like those aren't great odds. I think that should be like 30-1 or 40-1 because it seems more likely that he's going to go on day 3. I made that. I put him in that slot before there were some reports saying, teams just didn't like there were some character concerns. I think that's might be BS. I don't really buy into that, but still, like given that, I feel like the odds should be higher. Like, even round one is 100 to 1. Like that should be like 250 to 1 at least. Like 100. Like there's no reason to bet that. Like there's not even value there. Like even though it's improbable. So I would skip this section. There is a draft team specials. So um, I didn't find like these very appealing. You have position of team first drafted player, like for the Jets is offensive lineman minus 260. Although receiver plus 1200, I think there's a chance they might take Jackson Smith and Jigba to pair him with Garrett Wilson, but I think it's more likely that they go offensive lineman. You can go through every position. Patriots, I would not recommend because they're so unpredictable. So for Bills plus 1,000, if you think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be the Bills pick, I think that has some merit to it. I'm going to scan through these. I didn't get a chance to look through all of them. And obviously like Miami is pretty tough. So like they have each of these for every division. Have you looked through any of these?
I looked at a few of them. I looked at the Patriots one because I was just curious to see what they were saying, but I don't see a whole lot of good value. It's usually, they usually is a binary choice. Like they're probably going to go this position or this position, and those have the two shortest odds. So we're not getting great value on most of those. I think maybe if we go to the Texans pick, what is that at right now? I'm just curious.
It's off the board.
That would explain. Okay, I was going to say if quarterback versus edge rusher was an option, I might go edge rusher based off what you've said today. But yeah, I generally prefer to pick where players are going to be drafted as opposed to what teams are going to do. Like doing player team matchups, I think is a better value than this because they're much longer shots. Yeah, they're more specific, but if the Patriots like Zay Flowers or something, and you can bet them to take Zay Flowers as opposed to just a receiver, then you're going to get better value on that. And I know that's a bad example because the Patriots, anytime they like someone, they don't draft them. That's how their rumor mill works. But yeah, I prefer other props to this style.
I think what I'm going to do is like find all the Patriot rumors about like which players they like and just cross them all off the list and maybe find someone that they didn't talk about. Like I feel like that might be the way to go about it. Something that stands out to me is Detroit to take a running back is 30 to 1. So the way it might shake out if like we were talking about earlier, if Will Anderson's off the board, there's a good chance to take Bijan Robinson at number 6. So that's something that stands out to me. I might bet that. Like I said, I'm going to go through all of these. And based on what I hear from Charlie, I imagine I'm going to have some picks here. I just don't have that much confidence at the moment right now. But like I said, I think there is some merit to taking the receiver for the Jets, given that the 12 to 1, I think is pretty big. I think it's going to be offensive lineman, but if all the tackles are off the board, I think receiver is definitely in play. For the Bills, running back is 10 to 1. Like I said, they really like Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, there's a chance Jahmyr Gibbs is not even on the board, but 10 to 1, I think that there's like pretty good value there. Defensive lineman / edge for the Eagles plus 165. I think that's pretty good. I don't think they're going to take an offensive lineman. Skoronski is definitely in play for sure, but I think that there's more of a chance that they go Lucas Van Ness, Nolan Smith, someone like that. So I think that's definitely a play, and also running back at plus 850. I might actually bet both of these and try to win with both of them. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to be looking at these and I'm going to be posting them on the site once they're locked in for sure.
Yeah, I like the idea of betting those two Eagles ones, but yeah, these ones we're going to have to monitor more as we get closer because there are just too many options right now for them. Almost like we know what players we think will be there, but like it's just such a large swath of position groups.
Yeah. There are this last section is which team will draft a certain player. So they have Anthony Richardson, Bijan Robinson, Hendon Hooker, etc. Did you like anything in this group?
Yeah, I think I liked again Bijan to the Lions. I forget what the exact number on it. I found that one interesting. I think if you can get Jahmyr Gibbs to the Bills too, that's probably a solid value. What are the lines on Bijan?
Their Bijan to the Lions is 8 to 1. So that includes both picks. So
yeah. So that's a good double chance because you're talking about his ceiling. You get his ceiling and his floor that way. There are other Bijan bets I like more than that, but yeah, I think I think both of the running back bets are the ones to go with because I think Jameer Gibbs to the Bills makes a lot of sense. You might go earlier than that, but I think not a lot of people have running back on the radar as much as they should for the Bills because they just assume Josh Allen's going to be a part of that offense. And as I mentioned earlier, Will Levis to the Vikings at 20-1. That intrigues me because if he slips, the Vikings might sense an opportunity and just go for it. And we've seen Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, their GM, in his first draft, kind of made like a really weird trade when they let the Lions move up to get Jameson Williams and didn't really get a whole lot of value back. So he's willing to take risks and do things that are unconventional. So going after Levis could be something like that.
Yeah, I think those are pretty good odds for sure. Cowboys to draft Mayer plus 550. I think it's kind of interesting. I don't know if I'm going to get there, but it's something that stood out to me. Where was this? Jameer Gibbs to the Bills. You were talking about. He's 10-1. So the other odds were like Bills to draft running back with the first pick was what I just mentioned. It was like 30-1.
I think it was 10-1. I think they're the same thing. So they're basically saying the only running back the Bills will be able to draft there that makes sense is Jameer Gibbs.
Yeah, they're both 10-1. So you might as well just take the other one because who knows? Maybe they love some other running back. But from what we hear, they really like Jameer Gibbs. So it's funny that they made it out that way. But yeah, I didn't really see anything else here. Didn't think like the odds were great for most of these. So I'm probably going to be focused on the other stuff. Their draft pick parlays. I'm not a big parlay guy. You like first two quarterbacks in exact order: Bryce Young, CJ Stroud for -140. I think that's not bad. I feel like that has more of a chance than the other ones, and it's just quarterbacks here. So, did you look at any of these?
I looked at the quarterback one. I think Young Stroud probably makes sense, but you're not getting any good juice on that parlay. So and I'm not going Bryce Young, Will Levis just because there's buzz that the Texans like Will Levis. Like if they like Will Levis, they're gonna try to get him at 12. So yeah, I'm probably gonna stay away from those. I think it's probably Young Stroud, but I can't be too sure at this point.
Okay, we had a question here, but I should say like we couldn't find odds on this. What are the odds the Patriots to trade down? Like DraftKings didn't have them. Another sportsbook might. I imagine that you're going to find some odds out there for teams to trade down, but DraftKings didn't have them. So like I said, maybe other sportsbooks do. And Jordan asking like, are there any team to draft exposition first? Yeah, we just talked about that. So yeah, that's it. We just went through all the props on DraftKings. Like I said, you can go to other sportsbooks. I'm sure they're going to have other odds. I'm sure some sportsbooks are going to have better odds than what we just read out. You should always shop around. And as I said before, I'm going to have the official picks on the site during draft week once I talk to Charlie. So yeah, that's about it. Do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I'll be tweeting out NFL related thoughts, some of my articles. I retweeted my QB only mock draft. I have 15 quarterbacks getting drafted. It's probably on the high side. I'm sure the 15th I have in there is Adrian Martinez, and he's going with the third to last pick. Spoiler alert for that. So I don't know that happens, but I'm just having some fun with the New Orleans Saints or at the New Orleans Saints expense there. So preview for that. Please check that out. I'll have my believe sleepers lists and busts or potential bust lists coming out soon. And my long-awaited first official mock draft will be my 3-option mock where I go with who they will pick, should pick, and a dark horse for each pick. Man, is the top 10 going to be fun this year with the multiple options because I have no idea what's going to happen. So keep an eye out for those. And yes, the draft draws nearer. Let's enjoy this, and hopefully we can get enough info to figure everything out like we usually do.
Yeah, I think I'm really looking forward to it. Looking forward to reading your mock. And we're gonna have other options as well on our mock drafts soon enough. Probably during the weekend. It's kind of crazy how time's running out, but yeah, it is crunch time, and yeah, I can't wait to bet some of these props because we hit most of them last year. So stay tuned for that on the site as well. I'm at walterfootball.com. Tons of content on about the draft. Charlie is posting his sleepers for the draft busts. Positional rankings are updated, stock reports, everything. And then during the draft, we're going to have grades for each pick. like as soon as they happen, and plus grades for every trade during the draft. So yeah, you have all that on walterfootball.com. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. Also, again, we're sponsored by Stochastic, best DFS website out there. If you play DFS, you should definitely get on there. Their promo code's WalterFootball for 25% off. Jacob, I will talk to you next week when we do a 3-man mock draft with Charlie again. I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I'll talk to you then.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you then.
All right. Bye.